Corey. You're a brave man. One thing, I've told you a lot of stories today because we've spent the whole day together so far already.
It's been amazing.
The one story I haven't told you is this is the first podcast I've recorded in this room.
No shit.
No shit.
I feel honored to be the first.
Don't get ahead of yourself. Don't get ahead of yourself. Trust me.
Yeah, we're just getting started here.
We're just getting started. There's a lot of time for me to disappoint you still.
Yes.
What do you think of Seattle so far?
I think it's beautiful. I saw a lot of it today that I've never seen. Thank you.
I like that.
I've never been on the other side of the water from the city.
Today we saw the Ballard Locks. We saw Alki.
Yes.
Went up into West Seattle. We traveled some roads that a pedestrian tourist wouldn't probably see. Certainly a touring musician.
I had never.
Yeah.
So thank you.
It's a beautiful city.
It is. There's more to it than what I thought. A lot more.
Most cities, right?
Yeah. You always get kind of caught up in the main downtown area, but it's like most of the good stuff isn't there.
Most green rooms look just the same.
Exactly.
Starbucks looks just the same.
Starbucks are all the same.
That's right.
And they're everywhere.
That's it. Do you have,
Thankfully, we didn't go to any Starbucks today. We had coffee twice, and we didn't go to
we had
any.
Some great coffee.
That's right.
Yeah. So we're in Seattle. First episode back in Seattle. What's up? We're in Seattle. You're on tour.
I am. We just started. 3 shows in.
You're 3 shows in. 2 before. This is 3.
3 before. Plus, we filmed Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
Before we left.
Had you done that before?
Yes.
It's a trip to watch that production operate.
It's massive.
It's cool.
It is cool.
I had no idea that it was, chopped together.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I'm going to meet Jimmy Kimmel. No, you're not.
No, he ain't even there.
Yeah. You're not. But he introduced, no, not really.
Sometimes it's like that. We did it before they did the Willie's 90th show.
Was that outside?
Well, that was at the Hollywood Bowl. But 2 days before, we did Kimmel with Lukas and Micah, Willie's 2 sons. And that was just film it. We didn't even have a crowd. It was very strange. And we didn't see Jimmy at all. But this last time he was there, they did the show, but it's cool. You're right. They do it all in it's all like, Gwen Stefani was the performer for that night. Like they filmed us, but it doesn't air till the 20th.
Oh.
But Gwen was the performer that night, and they filmed her performance earlier in the day. She had this outfit on, and then later when they did the show, she came out to get interviewed. She had the same outfit on, and they're like, "You want to play some music?" And she's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And then but she already had done it.
Yeah, of course.
It's the magic of Hollywood, right?
It's still pretty cool to see, as they say, how the sausage is made.
It's amazing. There's that little room where it's like 2 little ladies sitting in a chair, and they got the headphones on. There's like a screen with all these different angles and shit, and they're choosing what
magic.
And then there's the guy mixing. Yeah, it's definitely it takes a village.
Have you've been doing this a while? I've only done a TV appearance like that once before. The only other TV I've done was like lip sync stuff, which was weird. I didn't even know the song. I was just like up there going. That was super
bizarre.
Weird. But I feel like I did Craig Kilborn.
Okay.
The old Late Night.
Yep.
But that wasn't live either. But for whatever reason, I was extra nervous. Have you ever done live TV?
Well, we did Live Aid?
Yes, I know Live Aid.
So I played Live Aid with Chris one year. So you're playing for a crowd of 100,000 people there, plus it's going out live to however million people. So
Right.
when people ask me what's the biggest crowd you ever played for, I think that was it. For some reason, I didn't get nervous for that, though. It's different than when you do a late night TV show and you got one song and you got one chance to play that song. You're in a very weird, sterile environment. The crowd is 20 feet, maybe more, away from you, sitting above you, and it's way
Right.
different than a normal situation. And the cameras are all in your face, and I get nervous for those things. But the live stuff with the normal live show, even if they're filming, I didn't think about it so much, even though it was 3 million people or whatever.
Right. Do you have any pre-show rituals that you have to go through or that you have found yourself falling into the practice of doing?
Yeah, this kind of evolves through the years, but I've always had warm-ups and things. Now it's a lot of stretching. I do my day is very ritualized. Like I get up in the morning and I work out and I stretch and I do cardio and then we get to the venue and I usually play a bunch. You get the bass and I have these a little practice amp with headphones and work on whatever and play as much as I can and then pre-show I do some more stretching and then I do a vocal warm-up. I don't consider myself a strong vocalist, so I like to warm up and kind of ease my way into it. If I just step out on stage, it's cold, it's a little rough.
Where'd you learn your vocal warm-up?
That again has evolved. We started doing warm-ups with Neil. We tour with Neil Young. He does a pretty simple thing where he starts like on G major and you just sing all the vowels basically. It's a kind of a meditation. You kind of hold out, oh, for like as long as you can. And then you go, oh, right? And then he'll go E through the vowels. Then you go up a whole step and you do that again.
Crazy. He's never been in a band that was like really known for harmonies.
He never used to warm up either, but his sound
right?
guy who's actually really has amazing ears, and I have a feeling at one point in his life was probably an amazing musician. I think he was a clarinet player. Tim Mulligan is his name, and he told Neil, like, I think you need to warm up your voice before you go out on stage at some point. I don't know when that was.
What a bold man.
What a bold move. Him and Neil have a pretty good, they have an open relationship, as far as he can be honest.
Right. It's good for a fancy famous person to have someone that's not there to wash
A
their
yes
feet.
man, yes, right. And
So to speak.
hard to find. And Neil appreciates that, I think. And he senses inauthenticity instantly. He's very, he's turned off by it instantly.
Seems like the kind of guy that would be.
He's the real deal.
Let's start at the beginning. That's a good place to start, right?
In the beginning.
In the beginning, Corey grew
There was
up
a
in
man.
Northern California,
Yes.
right? You told
Well,
me.
I was born in Truckee, California, which is North Lake Tahoe. I was up there till the end of kindergarten. And then we moved to Southern California, which is where my parents were from. They just ended up in Tahoe, and work stuff brought my dad back down south. So I grew up in the 909, which is, if you don't know, those who don't know LA, that's like more inland, the land of the dirt people.
Like Ontario?
Exactly.
Was that your airport?
Ontario was the airport. And I lived in Ontario, but I went to Montclair High School.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That was just a guess. That was my airport for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ontario. I mean, we lived in a lot of places there. I lived in Upland, Rancho Cucamonga, Altaloma, Ontario, Montclair. We moved around a lot. But I went to high school in Montclair High School.
I assume from talking to you all day today, that you were in the music program in school.
I was a huge music nerd. Yes.
Was bass your first instrument?
No. I started playing trumpet.
Is that right? Were you a fourth grade?
Fourth
right
grade.
in? Same.
They came around asking who wants to play. I didn't initially do it, and I signed up late, and I wanted to play tenor saxophone, and everybody had already signed up for tenor saxophone, so I chose trumpet, and I played trumpet through my first year of college. I still have my horn, and I still play once in a while. I'm trying to teach my son. I bought him a little student horn, but before that, I was really a dancer. I took
Really?
Yeah, I was really, really, really into Michael Jackson, and I took Michael Jackson dance lessons. I wore the jacket and the glove and the penny loafers, and I did competitions. I won a first place trophy from Rick Dees. He adjudicated a competition I was in, and I was in a dance troupe, and yeah.
Please tell me there is at least photographic evidence of this, if not moving photograph.
There's both.
Wow.
Yeah, my uncle every year or two reposts the photo that he has where I'm in mid-spin. I got the glove, shiny glove on.
Uh-huh. The hat.
The hat, everything.
Do you still got the moves?
I did the Billie Jean routine. That was my thing, was the Billie Jean. I could do it step by step, and singing, lip singing to it at 7.
Is that right?
Yeah. 7 and 8 was when I was doing that. And that came out of roller skating.
Right. That was pretty hot.
So I started going to roller rink on the weekends when I was a little kid. Somehow we started going to the roller rink, and that's where I started to become exposed to dance music, which my house didn't have any black music at all. It was rock and roll, and that's about it. Rock and roll. My dad listens to some, songwriters and stuff, Paul Simon and Bob Dylan, all the normal suspects. But no, I didn't know who Ray Charles or any of that stuff, any of the old stuff or the new stuff that was happening.
You certainly weren't listening to Lakeside.
No. No. So the roller rink was a big education for me on the pop side of music, and that's where I kind of started getting into dancing, because I was roller skate and I was dance on my skates. I was, pretty good at a young age at skating, and then that just led into dancing, and then I started playing music, and all that shit went away.
How important or how foundational do you think dancing and roller skating was to your musicality later, though?
I think it was a central part, to be honest. It was a piece that gave me a lot, like rhythm sensibilities, groove sensibilities, even like production, things like that. Like later on now when I'm making my own music, I'm realizing that those sensibilities came from a lot of that stuff I was listening to then.
Yeah.
And just opening my eyes to a whole new world of music, because I eventually became really immersed into jazz. And then I wasn't exposed to any of that in my house. That came out of learning about some of these people in the pop world that were like Quincy Jones, for example. When I was a fan of Michael, so then I started looking at the liner notes and Quincy Jones, and then I look who Quincy Jones was. He was a jazz trumpet player. Like, oh shit, I'm playing trumpet. And this was after I was already playing, and then you start just learning about the history of the music and where it came from, and I think without that, I would have a big, huge. I don't think I would ever. Maybe I wouldn't ever gotten into jazz at all, because I wasn't exposed to it.
Right.
Maybe because I was in band, and later in high school, it was like jazz band. You start learning about that stuff. Maybe I would have, but I was ahead of the curve when I got into high school because I was already like a pretty big jazz like nerd, like in my bedroom every night transcribing things. And when I got hip to Miles and Kind of Blue, it was like, whoa, I can actually like learn this because it's not so complicated. I was learning it by ear, even though I could read music, but I was learning all this shit by ear. And it just, I think that's the piece of the puzzle that if it wasn't there, I wouldn't be as good of a musician.
When I first got here, I took some bass lessons from the late great Brad Hauser, and Brad was in a band called Critters Buggin' with Matt Chamberlain and Skerrick, and he was also in the New Bohemians.
Okay.
And one day he was like, "Hey, I got to get out of here. I'm heading to dance class." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I got an African dance class." And I was like, "What are you doing? What are you taking an African dance class?" And he's like, "Yeah, for my playing." And I was just like, I was so taken aback, and it seems like such a foreign concept to me that I didn't even question him. I just thought about it, and I was like, wow, crazy.
Yeah.
But,
Makes sense, though.
I think he was backwards.
Maybe.
He was all weather report first, straight out of the gate.
Okay.
And then he's like, "Hey, let's get grounded."
Yeah. Well, I think also those, like dancing when I was younger and roller skate and all that helped me to be more agile, like on stage. If you watch me on stage, I don't really sit still. I do move a lot, and I can't. It's hard for me not to, And I always gravitated towards those players who I can see are having a good time and moving to the music. Like Jeff Ahmet from Pearl Jam. I didn't even play bass till years after Pearl Jam was Pearl Jam. And after I started performing as a bass player, I started to realize, like, fuck, man, I was watching Jeff back then. Like, I was studying him without even knowing, not just the way he looked, but the playing too. But his stage presence, like back in the day, was like, that's how I want to look on stage.
That dude would get all the way across the stage in 3 bounds.
3 bounds, I know.
It was amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And just his whole thing, his style, it wasn't the normal bullshit. Like, he just, like, wear whatever the fuck he wanted and, like, big old hats. And, I liked how he embraced sports, and he was really, he'd wear, like, jerseys and stuff. And I don't know, I thought that was cool. Because it was a combination of the street kind of hip-hop with rock, and I like that. I like the fusion of that stuff.
How long were you playing trumpet before you picked up the bass?
So from trumpet, I went to guitar. My dad had a guitar in the house.
That guy.
And I am left-handed for the most part. I'm pretty ambidextrous, but I'm mainly left-handed. And so it still feels right to do this.
Right.
But my dad was very adamant. He's like, nope, you're not learning left-handed. You're never going to be able to find guitars. It's going to be so hard. And he did me a huge favor because eventually I started bass on upright, and I would have never done that because they don't really make left-handed uprights. You rarely ever see that because there's a whole thing underneath. You got to switch around, and, right. It's not an easy thing to do. So yeah, I started guitar in junior high. He said, well, here's the guitar and here's a chord chart. Have fun. And so I started, this old chord chart that was like falling apart from like the 60s or something that he had, and just learning all the shapes. And then I started getting really into guitar. I was still playing trumpet in the marching and jazz band in high school, but I was playing guitar. Like, I was not practicing trumpet really. I was like at home working on and I had a rock band eventually, in a little funk jazz thing. That was my first band that I had like gigs with, booking at like coffee shops. We make a little money, or we get paid in coffee. We thought we were the shit, you know? Yeah, and then bass didn't come till college. I started college as a guitarist. I begged my high school teacher to let me play guitar in the jazz band my senior year, because I was like the lead trumpet player and I played all the solos, and he was like, I need you on trumpet. I was like, man, I don't want to do marching band. I don't want to play trumpet anymore. I want to play guitar in the jazz band. I'm going to college. I'm doing jazz guitar. I was just like, pfft. I begged him. Finally, he agreed. So and then this junior college came to our school one day to recruit. You know, they brought the big band, and they were all in suits and, you know, fucking killer players. And it's junior college, like right near where I lived. Totally accessible for me to go to, you know. At the time I was working. I was like, I could pay for my own. And they said, if you make the big band your first year, your freshman year, then you're going to get a scholarship. So I auditioned on guitar, and I made the A band and was in all the combos. I did the whole program, 2.5 years, and got my AA degree, and then was ready to transfer. And I had this huge existential crisis where I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to like work as a guitar player. Like, I know I'm good, but like there's so many guitar players that are good, and I'm not good. Like I could get good tone. I can play solos, but I wasn't like a shredder. Like, I didn't have crazy technique like a lot of these dudes I'm seeing in LA, you know?
Right.
And
is there any hindsight that you have now all the gigs you've done where you're like, I probably could have done that?
I think I could have been a guitar player.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
it's worked out all right for you, though.
I think in a lot of ways I should have been a guitar player. I'm playing a lot more guitar now, so who knows what'll happen? Maybe I'll swing back. But yeah, and I just kept hearing, oh, there's no bass players. Everyone needed a bass player in their band, and I thought, well, if I play bass, I was also missing orchestra stuff. Forgot to mention that. I did a ton of that with trumpet.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, on guitar, you're not doing that.
Right.
I'm playing classical guitar, but it's not. I missed the musicianship of having to worry about pitch and having to blend in a section and having to follow a conductor and reading the music. All that stuff to me was like the pinnacle of musicianship.
Ensemble.
And I just felt like with guitar, it's like, I don't have that. And with bass, I could have that, and I could also play rock and roll, and I could play jazz, and I could play, you know, like every single genre. So I, instead of going to transferring and doing the guitar thing, I stayed at the junior college and I redid the program. I stayed for a year just learning the upright. They didn't have a teacher, so I just was there by myself.
Had you owned a bass guitar before? Your first bass instrument was the upright bass. Wow. And were you playing a jazz box? Like what kind of guitar? Like an archtop, or were you playing?
Oh no, I had I didn't have any money. I had I think I was playing a Strat.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was trying to be Schofield.
Sure.
That was my guy. You know,
there are worse things to aspire to.
I had the fucking tone, and I was transcribing all that shit. You know, I want to be Sco. But there's already a Schofield, so yeah. So I just picked the upright up and kind of for a year was just getting it kind of together, and then I saw this guy play at this Christmas show they did at the college, and he was really good, and so I got them to hire this dude as an instructor, and then I did the whole program again on bass. So I played in the A band again, and I did all the combos, and I played in the orchestra this time because I was working on my bow.
First student to do 5 years at the junior college music program.
Probably not. First person to only do 5. It wasn't uncommon for people to be there like forever.
Right.
But
But you went all the way through the program twice.
I did.
Was it in some ways easier the second time through because some of the foundational harmony and...
It was and it wasn't. It was harder because the second time around because everyone was fighting me. All my teachers were like, why are you doing this?
Right.
My guitar teacher was like, dude, what are you doing?
What I want.
Because at first I was going to do both. I'm going to transfer and I'm going to do jazz guitar and I'm going to play in the orchestra on the bass and I'm going to like do both. And then I quickly realized like, probably not going to be able to do that. Right. So I had a lot of pushback, and I think that was the hardest thing. And but I was very determined. When I was that age, I just had a blind determination. It was like, this is what I'm going to do. I would just see the path and like, that's what I'm going to do. This is what I'm doing now. I'm a bass player. And then I went to the university and I ended up getting my degree in performance in orchestra. Their jazz program was terrible. I was doing both, but I already had such a good education that I figured I need to work on the bow because I really wanted to get better at that. Ironically, I don't do any of that now, but I want to do that eventually more. And yeah, so I finished and in the middle of all that, I started playing electric bass because I got asked to play in this funk band, which blossomed into an 8-year-long amazing part of my life. The band was called The Big Pill, 8-piece funk band, horns, a DJ, percussion player.
The Big Pill.
Big Pill, baby. Drummer was the singer, amazing fucking pocket and groove and, not the strongest singer, but he wrote some clever tunes. And me and him were, that was he was like my soulmate in music. We played thousands of gigs together, not just with the Big Pill, but jazz gigs and pop, like cover band, all kinds of shit. We were working in LA. We were like the team,
As a point of reference, what year is this?
I started with the Big Pill in 2000. So 99 was my last year at the junior college. I did the Warped Tour. Kevin Lyman was a friend of our teacher at Citrus. Kevin Lyman lives around where this junior college called Citrus is. And Kevin, swing bands were all the rage at this point, and he didn't have a swing band booked on the tour this year. So he had this idea of putting a swing band together of students from the college, taking punk songs and reworking them into jazz things. So we made a record, and then we went on the road for 3 months. He gave us a bus, like the whole thing. He set it all up.
Was that your first tour?
Yeah. That's when I got the bug.
What a fucking treat.
What a treat. Yeah. Incredible experience.
Was it a internship or did you guys get a stipend of any kind?
I don't actually remember if we were getting paid or not, honestly.
You probably didn't give a rat's ass.
I don't think I cared.
Yeah.
We might have been getting something little, but we shared the stage with this band called Common Sense. It's a reggae band. And at the time, their drummer was Chuck from the Arsenio Hall show.
Got it?
So that was a cool, Chuck, because I grew up watching Chuck. Funky,
sure.
So that was cool. But that was the year the Black Eyed Peas were on the tour. So and they had a whole band. That's like when the Black Eyed Peas were cool. Sorry. They were doing they still did all the dancing and they had a live band and
yeah,
it was. I didn't miss a set, and I was hanging out with them, blazing on their bus and shit. I'm 19. I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here? Well, I was older than that. I was 20, 22. But yeah. So that was my first tour, which opened my eyes to what touring is. I was like, damn, this is...
You played upright on that tour.
I did.
Right.
Both.
And electric.
No. I don't think I was playing electric yet. That was just upright. Yeah. And then I got asked to join the Big Pill, and I got my 5-string Music Man. Because to me, the electric bass was just a big guitar. I already played guitar.
Right.
You know, very ego thing. Obviously, that's not the case. But I got it. You know, I got on it pretty quick, and that band, the Big Pill, they're all amazing musicians. So I had to step up. You know,
Sure.
and bring it. And we did that band for 8 years until the drummer decided he wanted to move to South Carolina, and then that all ended.
What's he doing there?
Well, he is doing nothing now because he unfortunately committed suicide last year.
Jesus Christ. Sorry, but
That's
sorry to
all
hear
right.
that.
That's all right. He went there, you know, he was having issues.
Sure.
You know, we're all partying, like drinking and smoking pot, but it wasn't like we were alcoholics. Like he wasn't getting up in the morning and pounding beer or anything. It was just at the gig we'd have some drinks. But he felt like he had a problem, so he wanted to get sober, and his dad was living in South Carolina, and so he moved there to be with his dad and try to get sober. He ended up marrying a girl from rehab, which obviously they say is the worst thing to do. He ended up like cheating on her, and then they broke up, and then he started drinking and smoking again, which still wasn't a big deal. I never thought that was his problem. He just had some demons that he didn't face. Sure. You know, he was trying to run away from the demons instead of like face the demon, you know? So that was a hard part of my life, was losing him when he moved, not just when he died. When he died, it was already long time gone, but, it's still not easy that he's not here, obviously. But, you know, when he left, it took a lot of my musical identity, because I put so much into that band. And I mean, we were a month after he left, I got a call from Epitaph. They wanted to sign up. Like, we were getting to somewhere.
Right.
Lyman let us do the Warped Tour every year. We would just go and set up our own tent, like where they'd sell like hot dogs and shit. And we'd play fucking 8 sets a day and then drive to the next place. We did that 3 summers in a row.
Whoa.
And he was going to let us go on a stage the next time. Like, we were moving up, you know?
Sure.
And I think we still would be playing now if he hadn't had left, you know? But, so when he left, it was rough. And luckily I was already doing other things. You know, I was always playing in other bands and doing auditions and trying to work. So I had other stuff when that ended.
Because you like to live indoors.
Exactly. I like food, hot food.
Hot food is good.
Yeah. Cooked food is nice.
First use hot food.
Yes. Yeah. First use hot food. God.
So what, in parallel with Big Pill, what other things were you doing? Also, do you remember your very first gig? I imagine your first gig was probably a school concert. That was mine.
Well, it depends on what you're talking about. Like first paid gig, or like first time you performed in front of people?
First time you were there playing for an audience, not dancing, playing music.
Okay, well, not dancing, because that was the first time I performed in front of people.
Right.
My sister was in beauty pageants, and I used to do the half times. At 8 years old. That's where the video's from. Yeah.
Do you still got the moves?
Oh, you know, I can moonwalk.
That's cool.
Yeah. I can do the spin and the little kick.
Nice.
Crotch grab.
Still nimble.
A little bit, you know. First gig was, I don't think I remember the very first, like, in-person. It's a good question. Because I'm sure there were some, you know, those early days, like 4th, 5th grade. But I don't remember any
like
of that
Christmas
shit.
Concert.
Yeah.
I remember being scared as shit.
Really?
I was a first chair trumpet, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know.
You're a trumpet player too. Crazy.
And then went guitar and then bass.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I know a lot of bass players that started as trumpet players, ironically.
Is that right?
I don't know what that means. But.
Flea.
Mm-hmm. But when I played horn, I never got nervous. I don't know why. It wasn't until bass.
Really?
I didn't get nervous playing guitar. Oh, I had some nervous moments in college because that junior college was heavy, bro. Like when I first joined the band, there was some cats in that band, and we would go in the studio and make records. There was a studio in Burbank. They used to take us out, and we'd, professional studio, and we make fucking, and I'm on like 5 college records playing guitar and bass, Later on, it was easier playing bass because I'd already been through the process. But at 17, remember the first year I was there, it was like 3 months in. I'm still 17, and we got to go record a record. And I got solos, over like 5/4 and shit,
Sure.
complicated music. And that was very nerve-wracking. The studio, it was fun and exciting, but I remember being scared, But I think I'm always a little scared.
Really?
Do you feel that way? I don't know. I especially when it's new or something I've never done, like there's always a little bit of that anticipation or fear. It's just because it's unknown. And it's being able to overcome that and still go do it. That's what I tell my students. Like everything I've ever done, I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. Going into it, I just said, fuck it, I need to go do it. I need to show up and try, whether I think I'm prepared or not. I'm honestly, like the gig I just got, I told you about, I can't really talk about it yet, but like,
Sure.
When I got that call and he's like, you're the number 1 pick, I was just like, what? I was completely shocked because I had to rush to get the shit done. And, I felt like I didn't present myself the best as I could. I always feel that way.
But it's not Mahavishnu Orchestra. We can say that much.
It's not. The music wasn't, but the requirement of like, he wanted specific tones. He wanted me to match. And there was one really challenging thing he wanted me to do. And while I have those skills, I didn't have a lot of time. And I knew who I was up against because there's like 4 other bass players I was up against that I know are like the top fucking calls. And so it's like, there's no way, I'm not going to get this gig, but I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to fucking do it.
Right.
And I'm going to send them these tracks, even though I'm a little embarrassed. Honestly, I'm like, I don't know if this is right or not. And I'm feeling a little,
Don't you think you're your own worst critic?
I think so. And I think it comes from a place of caring. I care. I want it to be good. And I want the people who are hearing it to enjoy what they're hearing and not be like, it's that fear of the cringe.
Right.
And I'm I guess I'm a pretty critical listener. And so I think that everyone is a critical listener, which isn't necessarily...
I'll bet it's because you went to music school and all, like a lot of your performances were for peers.
Yes.
But today, when you go play a show, whether it's a club or, a shed, it's like, what do you think the percentage of musicians are out there?
I think it's small, and even the ones that are there probably aren't as critical as I am.
Right.
Because they probably haven't done as deep work. No offense, but I know what some of these new young kids do, what they think is work, and it ain't what I used to do.
Right.
Maybe what we used to do,
Well, I haven't worked like you have. That's for, no way.
Well, I don't know, but yeah, I think that it's, I try to tell my students is the more you can be prepared. Like my favorite saying is luck favors the prepared. That's how I've lived my whole life. I have to like constantly, like when I was young, people have to tell me stop practicing, bro.
Right.
Like I would do these dinner theater shows, this place called Candlelight Pavilion. And I would be backstage before the show, just practicing, running scales or whatever, getting my pitch settled and doing what I do. And it's literally like people get burned out. Like you're practicing too much,
How much do you, When I was getting ready to move back to Seattle, I decided, and I still haven't undecided, but I had decided that I'm going to get another upright. I had one in the 90s, but all I did was probably like those, like the Neil Young fan kids. I basically took mushrooms and played it naked in my room, and just like was weird.
Mm-hmm.
Never really learned how to play it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think what an inconvenience it is. I don't think I could even get it in my truck. It's a 5-foot bed. I'd have to put it up through the window, and it rains too much here.
Yeah.
But how much more? I mean, far be it from me to make a logical decision on buying an instrument. I have the most illogical collection of shit ever. But how much work have you gotten, or how much has playing the upright benefited you for a gig where you play electric bass primarily at all?
Well, my technique is based on the upright, so even on electric, I'm still playing the same technique generally.
So you're not a gripper?
No. But I also do, like, I'll do Samandal technique where it's a 3-fret span, mostly. So I'm using my first and pinky mostly. Unless I'm playing jazz or I'm soloing, then I'll, you can fan it out to 4 or 5, right? And be able to play more technical runs and things. But I think that the starting with upright, what that gave me was just tone production. And that's what I see when I was telling you about Tim LaFave and this other bass player. I'd seen them play in a similar group. And Tim's not the most technical bassist. He's kind of a gripper. He plays with a pick a lot of the time, and it's kind of looks caveman-y. And I didn't understand it for the longest time. But, like, his sound is insane. Like, his tone and his feel and his ideas, it's not at all like the other guy I saw play is way more technical and like flying lines and harmonics and all this fucking crazy shit. But like I could barely hear what he was doing. Where I could hear I could feel everything Tim was doing. And I think, he's an upright player. And I just think there's a correlation. The guys that I know that don't play upright but play electric and they're all super technical, they don't have the same tone production. They cannot get, and mostly play a super low action with light strings, and all the tone is just coming from the electronics. You're not pulling any sound. How I grew up playing was pulling sound out of the string. So my basses are all, when people play my bass, my electric, they're just like, holy fuck, because the action's up. Because I want to be able to yank that shit if I have to.
Right.
And that's where the tone comes from your hands. So I think without the upright, I wouldn't have that. It's kind of like without the dance background, certain things wouldn't exist in my playing. And without having played upright first, I don't think I would be as good of I wouldn't have at least what I have to offer as a bass player.
Right.
Because I'm not a super technical bass player either, even though I've done all the work, but like, I'm not even close to like these guys that I see, but I can produce really great sound, and I have a feel and I understand certain things. So I think the upright really was a essential part of my playing, even though I don't use it much now. But in my 20s, I made a living playing upright. I played jazz gigs every night. I played orchestra gigs. I was doing all kinds of stuff on the upright. That was how I made my living until I started touring. I only played electric bass in Big Pill, and I was in a couple like rock bands. I worked for the singer. The label paid us to rehearse with her. And then I was in a couple just projects with that Brazilian rock guitar player and a couple things. But yeah, upright paid the bills in my 20s.
What was your first touring band that you got from an audition? Because you've had some gigs.
Yeah. So I did a shit ton of auditions that I didn't get, and I was very discouraged.
Barry gigs, Barry auditions.
Barry auditions, yeah. But Barry's the one who got me some of these big ones too.
Yeah.
The first one I got that I auditioned for was ironically with the drummer that I play with now, Anthony. Me and him went to Citrus together, the junior college. He's younger than me. Actually, when I was leaving, he was coming in, but we knew each other. And he got the call to audition for this reggae artist, Elon. And Elon he was like a singer for the Wailers for a time. He's a trip. He's a white Jewish dude from LA, but when he sings, he sounds just like Bob Marley. And like somehow randomly, he wasn't even a singer. He like randomly he was at a bar and sang something, and then all of a sudden he was singing with the Wailers. And then he had a record deal and he's making records.
And embraced.
I mean, he wasn't huge, but we went to Europe. We were doing pretty big reggae tours with like Buju Banton and
all right.
So that was the first touring thing that I auditioned for that I got. And we auditioned together, me and Tony. I remember he really wanted the gig because Tony Cornell from No Doubt was producing Elon at the time, and he was a big No Doubt fan. So he's like, oh yeah, so yeah, Tony was there for the audition, and Elon and some other people, but and me and Tony auditioned together, and we got the gig. And I did that for a long time until I got the Cornell thing. When I got the Cornell gig, I stopped working with Elon because that was pretty much constant for 3 years.
So you went from doing like around town club funk gigs and cover bands,
and teaching at a junior college and teaching high school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Had you done any reggae gigs or study, or were you just like, all right, I'll figure it out?
I mean, I played reggae, like Big Pill had some reggae joints, and I listened to a lot of reggae, and I played that stuff.
Yeah.
And again, I was pretty fearless then. It was like, what? You want me to do what? Okay, let's do it.
Didn't feel out of your comfort zone.
Mm-mm.
But then what about when the Chris Cornell gig came along? Because that's a bit different than all of that other stuff.
A bit different, yeah. Although I think I had been in like a lot of things, it's like I had trained for that, because in my high school days, when I was playing a lot of guitar, I was listening. That's all I was listening to. I was learning Soundgarden. I was learning that shit.
Right.
Temple of the Dog and all that stuff. I didn't learn it on bass, but like I knew all that music from guitar.
Sure.
And then that was a crazy thing, because I played in this band with this Brazilian guy, Rafael Moreira. If you don't know who he is, check him out. He's insane Brazilian rock guy. We had a band called Magnetico. He's still doing that band. Hire me back, dude. When I got the Cornell gig, he just kind of was like, I need to find another bass player, because I was gone so much. And then I've played with him a few times since then. But anyways, we were like in rehearsal. He gets a phone call. It's Barry Squire, right? Chris wants you to come audition. Cool. Can I bring Corey and Joey? This is the guy from the Big Pills playing the drummer, right? And Barry knew who we were. He's like, yeah, bring him. Sure. So it's this huge cattle call. There's like 40 bass players. It was insane. I'm thinking, there's no way, I'm gonna try, but
Right.
And keep in mind, like at the time, I was like baseball cap, baggy jeans. I did not look like a rocker. And the guys there were like tight bell bottoms with like curly long hair and like
scarves,
the P bass, and I had I was like looked like more like Limp Bizkit than what they look like, you know?
Yeah.
And so first day, I had to learn 5 songs, stayed up all night because I was so excited. And I was like, I have to nail this. So
Do you remember what 5 songs?
it was Like a Stone. Shit, I can remember all. I remember it was Like a Stone, Black Hole Sun, something off Euphoria Morning, but I can't remember. Oh, which one? They Can't Change Me, or She Can't Change Me. I don't remember the name of that one. And then, sorry, dude, I'm spacing. But I remember it was 5.
Black
And
Hole Sun is a fucker, though. It's like the whole end part.
you know the crazy thing
crazy.
about Black Hole Sun, though? It's not. So I'm learning the Black Hole Sun. I'm going, it's not in G and it's not in A flat. The fuck? So where am I going to learn it? Because the record isn't in a standard.
Right.
And when I found out later, I asked Chris about it. He's like, oh, yeah. So we recorded the track, and when I was going to do the vocal, I sang the vocal over it, and it just didn't feel right. And he's like, someone had the idea of just speeding the tape up just slightly. And then I sang over that, and that ended up being the. So it's because they sped the tape up. It's in between G and A flat.
Right.
But they played in G, so luckily I learned it in both, and I was okay. The one thing I thought it was funny was the first day I auditioned with. They throw you in different configurations during the day. It's like you go in and you play with one drummer and a couple guitar players, and then they call you in again, and it's a different people. And one time they call me in, and there's this guitarist who's, I'm not going to tell you who he is, but you would know who he is if I said his name. And they call Like a Stone, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know it." And I remember just being like,
"What are you doing here?
Fuck. Are you serious, bro? That's like the easiest one on the list." So anyways, this was Thursday. Each day they called you back, they gave you 5 more songs to learn. We get to Sunday. They've chose the whole band except for the bass chair. And it's down to me and this other dude. He watches me do my last audition, and I watch him do his last audition. Like literally just sitting in the room, they play, I'm just watching. I'm sitting there going, oh, I'm completely fucked. I mean, okay, the guy's playing Spoon Man with a pick. That's not the way it's supposed to be, but he looks the part. He fits with the other dudes.
And he sounds good.
And I've lost every gig, because of looks so far. I've been like, haven't met that criteria. So I thought, I didn't get the gig. And I remember driving home one night from a Big Pill show, just late at night, and my phone rings, and it was Chris's manager, and he just said, "Yeah, do you want to be Chris's new bass player?" And just like tried to be cool, yeah, sure.
I guess so.
Sure, man, yeah, whatever. Hung up, pulled over on the freeway, and got out of my car and ran out into the field, somersaults and fucking backflips and shit,
Right.
Gets me emotional thinking about it. It was like, what? I just didn't think it was going to happen. And to be playing with someone that I've been listening to my whole life, basically. I mean, it was like 1980 whatever when I heard my first Soundgarden song. And so that was huge. I played with Vertical Horizon for a while. I don't know if but I didn't audition for them. That was just they called me. Yeah.
That came after Chris.
Yeah.
They saw you play with Chris, and they were like, "This guy can do it."
I think, Jason, the drummer in Chris's band, Jason Sutter, had played with Vertical. He knew Matt Scannell, and I think he suggested me, and they just were like, "Yeah, bring him." So I did that for a while before Lukas called. And then Lukas called, and I joined that band. And then 12, 13 years later, here we are.
In Seattle.
And we played with Neil. We were Neil's band for 4 records and like 5 tours.
That's the same band?
Uh-huh.
Is that right?
Which
I
is
didn't
another
realize
one that I
that.
was like, well, Needle and the Damage Done was literally the first song I ever learned on guitar.
Is that right?
My dad was like the biggest Neil fan ever. And I think Neil's probably the first music I ever heard.
Right.
So to play his music with him was
Is your
just
dad
like,
gone?
fuck. My dad was gone before that happened, which is, and he took his own life as well.
Oh, man, I'm sorry.
So it's like, don't do it, folks. I know things get low and things are hard, but what you miss out on and what you leave behind, man, I don't know. I don't know if it's that low or that dark to miss out.
Tomorrow's always a new day.
Can be if you want it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he missed that. But I felt him there a couple times.
Sure.
I had some trippy moments where I was like, lean back and playing a song, and I'm in my dad's truck hearing the song, and then I open my eyes and I'm like,
there.
which also gets me emotional, So I feel blessed, man. I played with guys that I grew up listening to and that are the fucking pinnacle of their
Generation.
generation.
I mean, Chris Cornell, the voice of a generation, like the voice that everyone says, like, that's the guy.
Yeah.
The generation before that is Neil. Like, there's Dylan, sure.
Right.
I was never a Dylan fan.
Me
I know
either.
that's an unpopular opinion.
Same, but I wasn't.
I
I appreciate the early Dylan stuff for what it was, but it's not like I was popping it in and studying it and listening to it.
Right.
Just wasn't.
Right. You said your mom was into hair metal.
She was.
Like what? Like
My mom's wild, man.
White Snake?
Uh-huh.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's killer.
Oh,
Motley
yeah.
Crue?
Oh, yeah.
All of it.
All of that shit, man. All of it.
Wow.
All of it. Pour some sugar on me, baby.
All of it.
I mean, when that record came out, that was all summer at the pool. She was rocking that shit. She wore that disc out.
I love it.
Because that was the dawn of the CD, so all the CDs in our house, it was fucking, the first Guns N' Roses record. It was, Def Leppard. Is it Hysteria, the name of that record?
Sure.
I think we had Queensryche, it was all hair bands.
Yeah.
She's My Cherry Pie. We had
Warrant.
that fucking Warrant. And then I was really into Van Halen, so we had a lot of that. And she liked Van Halen too.
What do you think about the bass playing on Van Halen records?
I think that a lot of it is Eddie.
Yeah. Clearly. It's too, and no shade on Michael. I think he's
amazing.
Killer. He's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
But on those records, for sure, it's just like, no bass player would do that. I don't care how long you've been playing with Eddie. No bass player would do that.
And it goes right along with what he's playing.
It's unbelievably tight.
Yeah.
What a band, though. Wow.
What a band. Those especially those early records, man. Insanity. The sound and the groove. Man. Drop Dead Legs. Whew. What a groove.
Dude.
And that riff. Wow.
I still play that one.
So good.
That's a good one. That's a good sound check song.
Hell yeah.
You got a couple sounds. Also, it's a little flashy.
And just this, yes, he was like technically crazy, but like his rhythm guitar playing, like the solos are what they are. And they're even, to me, they have so much soul, even though they're so technical. But like the rhythm guitar playing is equally as impressive to me.
Matchless.
It's just fucking insane.
Yes.
And how fluid and loose he was, like when you watch them live when they were young, it's like, man, I had this VHS tape. It was Hagar singing, but it was a full live concert, and I wore the shit out of that, you know.
Yeah, you bet.
And just Eddie's just so smooth and the moves and be able to fucking scissor kick and do all this shit.
The greatest.
Insane. But yeah, my mom was into the hair bands, and then she got really into hip hop. She's kind of into the whatever the trend is. That's my mom's.
She's still around?
She is.
Did she come see you play with Chris? Was she into that? Or was she like grunge killed my favorite music?
No, she was into it.
Yeah.
My dad was not.
Right.
My dad was like, meh.
Right.
What is this crap? Why is he just screaming all the time? You know, that kind of thing.
That's how he emotes, Dad.
Yeah. But at least he saw that. He saw me with Chris, and he you know, my dad told me when I was 17, if you're going to go to college as a musician, I'm not supporting you. So I moved out like the next day and put myself through college.
Right.
And he wasn't supportive. And I think a lot of that was the fact that he wanted to be a musician. Like he went to like a junior college out of high school. He had never taken band at all, and he tried to go into the music program, which is like if anyone's gone to a college music program, you know that you can't just walk into there and expect to survive. You need some background information first.
Sure.
And he didn't have any of that, so it didn't last long. And there was a little bit of like weird jealousy there because I was good at it and really focused on it. And even when I was successful with Cornell, I didn't really ever feel. I think if he saw me with Neil, it would have really been like a what? And then playing with Willie and playing with Neil, you know, probably would have gotten him a little to soften. But my dad never. He was a weird guy. I was always a little kid. He never treated me like a man. Once, even though I, you know,
sure,
at the age of 17, cut it ties, and he never helped. He bought me a bass when I joined Big Pill, which was a huge surprise. He surprised me with that. Just one day, just came. He's like, I want to take you to this, because I was playing some rickety thing, you know, and he saw me playing, and he went and bought me the bass, which is cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But I don't think he ever really embraced me being a musician, which is fine. I didn't do it for him, so.
Right.
I think if he could let his ego go, that he would actually be proud.
I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Ego is a motherfucker, isn't it?
It's terrible.
It's the worst thing.
It's terrible.
You've played with, as we've already gone over, legends. And I'm sure if you were to see yourself on stage with them through a lens as it was happening, it'd be weird. But, you know, there are those, I haven't played with people on that level. I've played with a bunch of folks. If I think about it while I'm there, you know, like you're on stage, you're practicing, whatever, getting ready for tour, you're looking at Neil Young. That might be a little tricky for me. How do you get yourself in the place where you're like, nah, it's cool? Because they are just people.
They are.
They're just people that made better music than most other people.
Yeah. But Neil's like a different person too. He's on a whole nother level.
Right.
But it is a thing. I know what you're saying. I think that again that just comes down to being prepared for me personally. Being in the bass chair, I feel like there's a lot of pressure there. You play one wrong note, everybody hears it, right? And there's been times on stage where I've played a wrong note and Neil turned around and gave me a look. Now that is really shitty.
It's a bad feeling.
That look, not a good, it's like, for me anyways, it's just like, oh man, I just let the dude down, you know? So when we're on tour with Neil, I'm going over 300 plus songs every day. Because
and you're going through them mentally in your head,
I'm
or
listening to and going over as many of them as I can. You know, maybe one day it's half of it, and the next day I go over the next half and keep alternating or mix it up or whatever. But like,
is he a no sound, set list guy?
we started with the set list, and then it became a no set list thing.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So you would walk on stage. Would you know what your first song was?
Generally would know what we're starting with. Yeah. It kind of got into a thing where we'd kind of know, you know, we'd start a certain way and it would like be acoustic first, and then we'd slowly build into more electric stuff. But a lot of times he just start playing a song. You got to know what he's playing.
Right.
And know when to jump in because he just started it. So it's like, okay, when you coming in, drummer, you know?
And so you were taking, to bring this all the way back around to the vocal warm-up conversation that we had at the beginning of our conversation.
Yeah.
You were covering some harmonies from some of these classic songs?
Yes.
Tell me about the hairs on your arms the first time you did that. Was it at sound check, or were you guys in a rehearsal in the barn? That's how I imagine him rehearsing in a barn.
In a barn, yeah. We've done some barn rehearsals. Well, the first gig we did was really off the cuff. He just randomly called us to do this protest that he was doing in Nebraska, a pipeline, you know.
Uh-huh.
And he gave us a list of songs. I don't think I sang on that gig. But I tell you, that's another thing that, like, I learned how to sing harmonies in my car when I was a young lad. Spent a lot of time doing music in my
Sure.
And I used to just harmonize to things that didn't even have harmonies. Like the first Pearl Jam record, I could harmonize the whole fucking record, every note, just because I would listen to it and I'd sing to it, you know? And I didn't know what I was doing, but I was basically teaching myself how to harmonize. And then, and I can sing pretty high. I got like falsetto. So singing a lot of those songs with Neil, you know, especially at first, I mean, it blows my mind, you know? I think in the early days it was hard because we weren't tight, and I like things to be tight. So a lot of times it was frustrating because maybe some pieces weren't right.
But that's the vibe.
That's the vibe.
Right.
And I had to kind of give in to that, you know? What really made me feel good was when like his front of house guy would be like insist, like, Corey needs to sing the high parts.
Right.
It's because because Lukas is here and Micah's here. They're both singers, you know, great singers. But he's like, because the high part needs to be in tune, you know? And so that was like, that made me really feel good because that meant that I was doing it, you know? It's like, okay. Because I'm never really sure. I mean, I'm singing, but it's like, hopefully this is right, you know?
A lot of lead singers, not great harmony singers.
Right. Which just makes sense, right?
I don't know. You know what? Nothing makes sense to me anymore,
It's like
man.
the classical musician who's got all the technique in the world and can read anything, but you put a 12-bar blues on, they can't improvise over it. That blows my mind. Like, how is that even humanly possible? I don't understand. You have all this expressiveness and all the tools at your fingertips.
It's a different language.
If it's not written out for you, you can't do it. It's wild. But the singing thing is always hard. I'm not a singer, so it's always like I second guess myself. And so
I'm going to put that to the test tomorrow.
Getting that feedback from Tim, the front of house guy, was very encouraging. And then later, like last year, we did a benefit with Stephen Stills and we were doing these rehearsals at Stills' house, and Neil would come, and I was singing 3-part harmony with them.
Us too. Oh, fuck
Now
me.
that was like, oh my God.
And playing.
And playing, yeah.
Yeah. Was it just the three of you doing that?
No. Tony was there.
Mm-hmm.
And our keyboard player was there, but he played with Stills, but he didn't play when we played with Neil. We did like a Neil set where it was just trio. It was me and Anthony and Neil, and then Stills came out and Logan came out, and we did a Stills Neil thing. Wow. Yeah. That was a cool night.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
When you think back about all the gigs that you've done, is there one that you think back to with the most fondness, where you're like, that was the one? Or, like, I don't mean, glory days, because you're still playing, you're out doing it, but is there one that you think back with the most nostalgic sentiment?
Those times with Chris were like unmatched. I'm so glad that I got to experience that. We went everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
We played every venue you could think of, from 100,000 people at Hyde Park to the Stone Pony in New Jersey that holds like 200 to 500 people.
Place is pretty cool.
It's rad.
Yeah.
I mean, the fucking ceiling was dripping that night. You know what I mean? That was a rock show. And some of the most memorable shows of my life in South America with him. One show in particular in Chile, people still are writing about this show online. And it's so vivid in my mind. That show was incredible. One highlight, we're playing, and I'm just like, something just doesn't sound right in my ears. It sounds like the monitor guy put reverb or something, right? So we come off stage. Chris does his acoustic thing. We come off stage. I go to the monitor guy, like, I don't know what's going on, man. It sounds like, did you put reverb on my ears? And he's like, no, dude. The crowd is singing every guitar note, every vocal, every guitar riff, the fucking solo, like they're singing everything. 10,000 people just at the top of their lungs singing along. And Sutter had this epic drum solo. I had bought one of those Carnival whistles down there, and I was doing the fucking whistle calls, and he was doing like this samba drum solo, and people were like throwing flags on it was incredible. So I think that if I was going to pick up, I'm really proud what we've done with Lukas and building the thing from the ground up and the camaraderie of being in a band. But as far as like a career highlight, I think that playing with Chris and Neil, some of those shows in Europe that we did with Neil are epic, and those venues are crazy, and playing 3-hour show. We've played the longest Neil Young show ever, 3 hours, 42 minutes and 38 seconds or something.
That's a lot of damn songs. What is that, 45 songs?
I don't know. Probably pushing 50, yeah. But I literally had like 350 on a list that he would just play at any moment.
Is that the most challenging gig you've done?
Neil's gig?
Yeah.
Good question.
It's certainly the biggest catalog.
I don't know. Maybe just the fact without a set list and not knowing every night and having to be prepared, having to have so much ready to go.
Right.
Maybe, yeah. I don't really think about it, but that probably was the most challenging gig to date. Yeah.
What's the biggest clam you ever laid on stage?
As a professional or before I became a professional?
That's like, like a proper stage, like not like you went to do a spin in the set when you were 7 and landed on your can.
Yeah.
Surely you've laid some eggs.
Let me think about that. I have a big fall I remember that.
That's good.
Australia. It's actually, you can find it online. Playing with Chris. I forget where in Australia. I was at the front of the stage and I started running kind of fast backwards. I'm still facing the audience, but I'm running backwards.
Right.
And fucking hit the monitor and you see my feet just go up in the air. And then I disappear. I landed flat on my back.
I'll try to cut that in right here.
Exactly. And I remember just laying there with the wind knocked out of me, trying to keep playing. We're playing like fucking Spoon Man or some shit,
And you didn't stop.
I didn't stop, and I had to get up while I'm playing. So I used the bass to kind of get over and stand back up. So that was gnarly.
That's a pretty good egg.
Wrong note stuff. I try to block it out. I don't even really remember any kind of clams. I'm sure they're...
Really what I'm getting at is humiliating stage moments.
No, I had a lot of those when I was younger, but as a professional, I feel like I've been pretty lucky to not have too many of those.
Preparation.
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, man, my dad put me in this guitar competition. I was going to play You Really Got Me, Van Halen's version. I had the whole thing worked out. I was on fire. They gave me one of these tuners that I had never used. Right.
Oh.
And I can't hear it. So I'm just reading and I didn't know how to read it right. So I tuned my guitar all wacky and I go out on stage and I'm like 11.
You don't know troubleshooting at 11.
No. And it was terrible. Honestly, surprised I continued playing music after that because it was fucking terrible.
That's what I was going to say. That's the kind of thing that will end a kid's career early.
Dude, I mean, I must have really been driven to do this thing because that was bad. But I remember the band stopping and letting me kind of tune again, but one of the strings I couldn't get into, it just never worked. It just ended up being all bad.
So I take it the best lesson you've learned in your career is preparation.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of natural gifts, so I have to prepare. I have I can hear pretty well and pitch well and my timing is good, but technical stuff, I have to really just be always practicing and always working on stuff.
I tell people that all the time. I have zero natural talent. When anyone's like, "Hey, what should I do?" Just practice. I can't. Nothing came to me easy. I played so much as a kid. I still play a lot. I have stuff like this that distract me.
Changes as you get older. I made a decision at one point, actually during the Cornell, when I got the Cornell gig, I was like, I'm going to stop practicing for a while, what I was doing.
Right.
And I did that because I wanted to integrate what I was practicing and into my playing more. I wanted to stop worrying about the technique so much and play music. And I think a lot of it was good, but maybe I went too long without practicing.
Do you think there's a component of foundational technique in the traditional sense that can be harmful to the spirit of rock and roll?
Absolutely.
How do you strike that back? Because Chris material is it's kind of all over the board. There's some really aggressive Soundgarden stuff. I don't know how much of that you guys covered, and as we talked about earlier, Ben is a wild bass player, and when you listen to his bass line soloed, it's crazy. You're like, what is this? And then you listen to it in the context of the song and you're like, well, it's genius musicianship is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the biggest challenge, like for a jazz bass player to play like rock and roll is the feel of it. And I think that it's the fear for the straight ahead musician to play dirty.
Right.
I never had that fear because I could hear the difference. You know what I mean? Like I heard the dirt in the rock and roll. It's like you have to fucking be, you know, if I have to play, like if it's punk or something, I'm playing with a pick. Like I can't be worried about playing it exactly right. I'm worried about fucking,
Right.
you know? And I think it's just embracing what the energy of the music that you're doing, whether it's a classical gig where you're playing rock and roll, understanding what stylistically makes it, what separates it. Like if I'm playing jazz, what separates that from playing a rock and roll gig? Well, you know, I want to be super precise on a jazz gig. I'm playing upright. You know, I need my pitch to be good. I need to be lining up to what the piano player is doing chord-wise. There's all these things. I'm playing rock and roll. I'm not thinking necessarily about that. There's a lot less musical information probably happening, and I'm thinking more about the vibe of what it is, right? I'm not thinking 1E and a 2E when
Right.
I'm doing rock and roll music, right? I'm thinking, what is this riff?
Right.
What is this? I'm not counting it out. We're in a jazz situation. Maybe I am thinking that I'm subdividing or I'm whatever. But in rock, it's more just a feel of it. And I think that's what's enabled me to do both is that I can, separate those things. Because when I was a kid, I was really into jazz, but then I'd go hang out. I remember there's the older dudes at the restaurant I worked with, you know, the older cool kids. There's smoking weed, skating, and I was kind of a nerd. And they'd take me to their garage, come jam with us, you know, and they'd just be fucking blown away that I could play like So What on the guitar, you know.
Right.
And then we'd play some rock and they'd be like, how the fuck can you play, you know, I'd play like Jimi Hendrix, you know. I don't know, I just emulating what I was hearing on both ends of the spectrum, you know, and understanding what that was and also understanding what that is and what you have to do to make that sound, what you have to do to make that sound, you know?
Top 3 dream gigs that you haven't had.
Foo Fighters. If Dave Grohl came to me and said, here's a machete, cut off your pinky toe, and you're going to be the bass player in the Foo Fighters, I'd say, give me the fucking machete, bro.
Wow.
I love
Pretty
him.
good gig.
I love the music. I love the energy. I would have an absolute ball playing that gig.
Pretty good shows.
Yeah.
Cool organization too.
Very cool. And, you know, global, so you're going everywhere.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't know. We were talking about Sting earlier. I've always imagined or dreamed of. I just have like a crazy respect for that guy. I think he's an amazing musician, songwriter. And musically, it's pretty heavy. It would be cool to work with him.
You a Police fan?
Yeah.
You see that video clip? It's gone around before, but it went around recently when the Police got together, you know, whenever it was.
The reunion.
14 years, 15 years ago, whenever it was.
Yeah.
They were rehearsing. And dude goes into a fill and drops like a whole beat. He speeds up so much. And Sting stops and starts laughing. And dude just blows up on him, cussing him out. And it was in that moment where I was like, oh, right. Right.
That's why.
I was always like, fucking singers, man.
Right. Sting's an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he would be like, well, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I saw an interview of him where he was explaining it actually, and he's like, I just didn't see that musically going where I wanted to go. He had so much other stuff he wanted to do musically, and he felt like he was being held back by maybe the lack of musicianship or whatever.
And I love the Police.
Me too.
Fucking love it. But
Stuart Copeland's a hell of a drummer.
super badass.
But he does Rush, and he can be loose, But that's what makes it cool. I mean, those records are amazing. There's so much energy there, and part of that is because of that drumming, undeniably.
Well, you can play the bass and sing high. Maybe you can go do the Police with those guys.
Hey, there you go. I actually, another gig that would be great that I thought, and maybe it's enough time has passed, but ZZ Top.
You got a beard.
Dude.
And you got to be able to sing high.
I would fucking love that gig.
Fuck, yes.
I would crush it, dude. I would love it.
I love
just
the
let
top,
my beard
dude.
Grow.
I love the top.
Yeah.
Love it. That's your 3? Or is that a bonus answer?
That's my 3. I'll say that's my 3.
What's your favorite ZZ Top record?
Like full record or song? I don't know. It's hard to choose. I don't know.
I like that Rio Grande Mud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, when they were right up to Eliminator. Eliminator is killer. I love Eliminator. It's killer.
Yeah. I just I figure Chris Cornell, Neil Young, if I played in ZZ Top, that'd be I don't know.
Dude, that'd be pretty great.
That's call it a day, dude. I
think dude's got that gig nailed down,
yeah,
though. He's been with them for a long time.
It's not happening. That makes sense. It should be him. AC/DC would have been cool. Congratulations, Mr. Cheney. What else? What else would be a cool gig? And I'm also still a real jazz head. So if Branford Marsalis called me to play, that would be I think one of the highest calls, even though glamour and money wise it would be nothing, but it would be fucking Branford's
prestige.
My hero, dude, musically.
What about those sort of what would you call it? New soul gigs? Like all the Pino gigs.
Neo soul?
Pino's doing all those gigs, right?
Yeah.
Pino
D'Angelo and all that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that stuff too.
It's so
I just don't know if I'm the guy for that.
back.
Yeah.
It's so much different than what he did in the 80s.
Pino? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
How wild.
And how did that happen?
Fuck if I know.
Right?
Do you play any fretless electric?
Not so much. I used to do more. I have a couple fretlesses, but I don't have a lot of reason to play it, so it doesn't come out very often.
I ripped the frets out of my bass so that I could learn the few licks on Every Time You Go Away, the weird little hot Pinot runs,
Yeah. I was just watching
Didn't feel like a waste of money at all. Honest.
Yeah. I just watching him solo on something on fretless, and it was God damn, so good. He's got those hands, his fingers are almost he's longer than mine.
9.5 feet tall.
He's massive,
right?
These big guys that play bass, I feel like they're cheating. There's a guy in LA, Keva. I'm not going to say his last name right, so I'm not going to even try. But he's huge too. And he's actually playing with Sting in San Francisco. Sting's doing some orchestra gig, and he's playing upright.
We could probably get someone to go down and take care of him, see if you can get that gig. Give him the old Nancy Kerrigan.
Right to the knee, or maybe the elbow. Sit down and play bass, but if you whack his elbow, yeah.
I'm gonna let you get out of here.
Thanks for having me, man.
No, this has been super awesome. It's been a super fun day.
Great day.
We have a studio recording scheduled tomorrow, and then I'm gonna see you play at the Showbox, which I'm really stoked on.
That's right.
And we're gonna have fun tomorrow. We got a lineup of killers.
Yeah, I'm stoked. The tune is cool. I love the arrangement. It's gonna be good.
I think people are gonna dig it. It's sort of the new way. I'll tell you about some of the other ones I have in store because they're all as, offbeat.
Oh, cool.
Well, I don't know how cool they're gonna be, but they're similar sort of stylistic or genre mashes.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, man. Taking me around today. It was this has been a great Seattle experience.
Let's see if we can maybe get you run you by a couple things on the way through. You know what I'll show you? I'm going to run you up over Capitol Hill and show you the singles apartment.
There we go.
Huh?
Let's do it.
How's that sound?
Play the soundtrack on the way
Why
up.
not? Why not?
Relive the glory days.
Woo! You! All right. Thank you, bud.
Thank you.